What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. I've had an idea. A couple of my players decided they would turn their characters, their D&D characters, into actual avatars. I was thinking I might invite some of my friends that have made their characters into avatars into like some sort of a video where we could do some RPG horror stories together. I think that'd be kind of neat. It'd be kind of fun. It's like blending my favorite things of VR chat and D&D together. What do y'all think? Let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts about this are, and I'm gonna get to the first RPG horror story for today. AITA for wanting to kill my friend's character because I can't handle his demands anymore. I'm the DM of Paranormal Order campaign that has been running for 5 years. Since the beginning, I've been playing with a childhood friend. I'll call him Ash Ketchum. We had a 1-year hiatus. Then we came back. He was very set on playing a specific character he really likes. Since then, he's been doing everything he can to keep the character alive. In his new phase of the campaign, which has more of a survival horror tone, he constantly makes metagame decisions just to keep his character alive, even when it breaks immersion. I let it slide for a long time because we've been friends since childhood. The issue is that since the character survived, she ended up being part of multiple campaigns, and over the time started making more and more suggestions about the story, usually pushing the focus towards his character. For context, she's basically an edgy combat character, kind of an alcoholic with an 80s rock aesthetic. At first, I went along with it to keep things smooth, but in last session, he crossed the line. He started treating his suggestions like obligations, as if I had to include them in the campaign. If your DM includes something that you ask for, that's because your DM is trying to be nice and make sure that you feel included in the game itself, and make sure to include stuff that makes your character feel more involved and there in character. But when the suggestions become demands and you're demanding the DM to have something specifically happen, I feel like that's kind of crossing the line, because you're sort of using your friendship and your knowledge of somebody in order to demand for something to happen. I mean, even if you didn't know the person and you just started demanding your DM to include this, that, and other, it would still be very rude and disrespectful for your DM. I don't mind if a player asks me for something specific, but as soon as a player starts demanding that I do some sort of specific unique storyline or unique item or unique this, that, and other, that's when I'm gonna draw the line myself personally as well. It's one thing to make suggestions and trying to come up with a story together, but as soon as you make a demand and turn the DM into basically a fun dispensary machine or a magic item dispensary machine or specific world event dispensary machine or story event dispensary machine, that's when it's not D&D anymore. You're just demanding for something to happen and it happens, almost like asking for a genie in a bottle to do the thing for you. DMs aren't dispensary machines or genies in a bottle. Don't treat them like that. He also complained multiple times about me introducing new players and said he'd rather the session focus only on him and another player from his team. Basically spent a lot of time questioning my decision as a DM. Oh great! This player is also a main character Mary Sue Gary Stu kind of person that wants their character to be the bestest ever and only have the focus on them and part of their team and nobody else. Those are the kind of players that are honestly the worst, I think, in this situation, because the focus on the character surviving for so long and you maybe allowed the character to survive for so long in this survival horror game. Maybe they got too attached to the character and now they think, oh, my character can do no wrong, my character will survive everything, my character will live forever, and the things their character is literally the bestest ever because they just so self-absorbed with their character, potentially, maybe. Or perhaps you coddle them too much and allow the character to get away with a lot of stuff, so now they kind of get used to this sort of thing. They used to be able to get away with certain stuff and being the main character because maybe you enable that sort of thing. I'm not saying the DM is an enabler, I'm just saying it's a possibility that maybe this behavior was enabled by you just letting your friend get away with stuff like this, potentially. I could be wrong, or I could be right, I don't know honestly, but there could be a possibility to all of it. To make things worse, he already told me that if his character dies, he'll stop playing my campaign in this setting. Honestly, this has been really exhausting. I started considering just killing his character in-game to avoid dealing with this situation anymore. At the same time, I know that might be unfair and too personal. So, AITA for wanting to do this. Would you be the a-hole for wanting to kill off your player's character because your player is annoying? Yes. Do you have grievances with your friend? Very much so. I feel like before you kill off their character, you take these grievances to personal DMs or talk in person or whatever. You want to take this stuff to private conversations and discuss it with the player. This feels like an issue that's not in the game, but this is an issue out of game that should be discussed and resolved out of game. If at the end of the day, that your friend literally cannot budge over your feedback over stuff, best thing to do is remove from the game. Don't be vindictive to try to kill off the player character, just remove the player from the game. There's no reason to have a problem player at the game. It's just so much better to solve out-of-game stuff out-of-game instead of in-game, because otherwise it would sound very vindictive of you if you just like, I'm annoyed with your character, clearly I have valid reasons, but I'm gonna kill off your character and ruin your fun anyway. You know, it just would be wrong to do so. Don't handle out-of-game issues in-game, handle them out-of-game, and then just play the fun game. Because if you handle the issues out-of-game, you never have to handle them in-game. Make a post about being the a-hole. Address the problem with the friend, and if they're still not budging, remove them from the game. Simple as that. No killing off characters or anything is necessary. Let's get on to the next story for today. I got put into a cutscene while the rest of the party beat up my character's villain. Is this normal? One of my friends recommended I post this story, so hello. I never posted here, but I watched Crispy's Tavern and Crit Crab, if that counts for anything. This is a bit long, sorry about that. There's a TLDR at the bottom if that helps. Quick disclaimer, no one in the story is the bad guy or actively malicious. My GM is a fantastic guy, and I love playing his game. To be honest, I'm not even sure if this is a horror story. I'm more looking for advice. I'm pretty mystified by this whole story, so if anyone has any clarification or insight, I would love to hear it. Context: I, 23 female, got really into TTRPGs 2 years ago and wanted to try a superhero-themed one. Searched around for a group playing mutants and masterminds and had no luck until my current GM reached out to me. I'll call him Dave. Dave's group is older, around the 30s and 40s, and all men. This isn't a horror story. They're all great guys who have never been weird at all, and I'm super thankful. Made my character a peppy 16-year-old hero with absentee parents and clearly evil brother. When I say evil, I mean like Green Goblin evil. The brother, Eric, essentially raised my character Ella, but drifted apart as he immersed himself in our family business, bioengineering. Eric was business-oriented with an obsessive nature for success. My character Ella got her powers like Spider-Man by freaking around in his lab, unsupervised and touching a glowing source. Her power works a bit like a non-sentient venom symbiote. Bear with me, I promise, all this context is important and I'm not just yapping. That's fine, I'm okay with this, I'm very fluent in Japanese. I don't mind a little bit of yapping, as long as it matters to the story. I told Dave the GM that I wanted a cat and mouse dynamic with Eric, so I built my character to be an expert liar with terrible insight. She couldn't figure out that Eric was super evil, and Eric couldn't catch her in a lie. Though he was clearly suspicious, Ella was in denial that her brother could even be slightly malicious. This dynamic went out for about a year or so in-game. Over this period, GM gave me several dreams/visions of Ella having to kill or devour her own monstrously mutated brother. So my expectations were set. After 6 months time skip where our characters went to space, our superhero group came back to find my brother deteriorating into supervillain territory. We investigated an abandoned lab and found Resident Evil style voice memos of Eric saying things like, "She no longer my sister, you're just a specimen," and "it must be captured and controlled." He had built an Iron Maiden situation to restrain my character and painfully drained her of her powers, even if it killed her. In a lab, we found a recreation of her childhood room, and notes on how to keep Ella docile with needles and siphons, while Eric drained her powers. There were notes about neural inhibitors harvesting the core, rants about how Ella was soft and wouldn't fight back. Eric was obsessive. He must save her, keep her safe from the outside world in the bunker, and the rest of them didn't deserve her. She would only be safe with him. Dear God, that escalated fast. I, as a player, am pretty overwhelmed. This is obsessive and sick, another dynamic I expected from an underage girly pop hero. So faced with a frankly horrifying situation, I played Ella as being in total denial, unsure whether any of this was real. Eric went from suspicious but still her brother who raised her to weirdo obsessive man who wants to entrap his 17-year-old sister and keep her forever while also stealing her powers. A few more sessions happen and we find out Eric sold trafficked victims to his supervillain benefactor for human experimentation. Holy crap. Okay, so on one hand, I think it's kind of cool and sort of edgy what your GM is trying to do. I don't know what mutants and masterminds using. I'm assuming GM, game master. But you know what? You're kind of right. This actually doesn't go off the dynamic that you initially wanted, the cat and mouse thing. I'm assuming maybe, actually, I got a question for you. Did your DM, GM, whatever, decide to tell you about this and ask you if this is the kind of dynamic shift that you wanted to have, or was it just kind of out of nowhere? I'm assuming this is just kind of out of nowhere because even you were shocked and surprised by all this and clearly say this is not the dynamic you even wanted. So in a sense, we kind of have a bit of a problem here. You said that nobody here is a bad guy, but I feel like your DM suddenly shifting the dynamic and the backstory and stuff and the whole thing between you and your BBEG villain brother is already a bit of a problem going on here right there. Like, you say that nobody's a bad guy, but I feel like your DM is sort of a bad guy in a situation that ain't clear with you about the backstory, suddenly started rewriting the whole dynamic and backstory for you, and then suddenly laying this out onto you just out of nowhere because maybe they watched Resident Evil or they played the new Resident Evil game or something. And they became inspired by it and decided, okay, that is the backstory now, not the cat and mouse that the player wanted, it's what I as a DM want. And now we have a problem because your GM is rewriting the story with your brother and stuff, and that's definitely a bit of a not okay thing to do. It's one thing to clear with the player about backstory changes and shifts if need be. It's a whole other thing to just say, you know what, I know better, I'm not gonna check with the player, and I'm just gonna run whatever I want at this point, because now you have a player that is oddly just obtusely confused about what the hell's going on, because this is not what you guys agreed on and what you okayed, nor does it seem like there was any discussion about the changes done to the backstory in the first place, which is kind of concerning. Well, let's see what else happens, because there's still a lot more to read. A few more sessions happen, and we find out Eric sold trafficked victims to his supervillain benefactors for human experimentation. Holy crap. At this point, I'm flabbergasted about how evil this guy is. He's not just a terrible brother and kinda evil, he's using Geneva violations like a personal bucket list. Clearly he gotta go. Effective immediately. But I'm not sure how to play it. Ella still loves her brother and still in somewhat denial. Figure her symbiote will probably take over and devour him like her dreams. There's evidence he's trying to recreate the symbiote for himself, so I'm expecting a carnage-free venom fight against my evil brother. And I'm ready. I want to punch the sicko in the face because Ella is at her breaking point, and she needs to expel her rage and confusion before she has a full psychotic breakdown. At the bunker, we'll find evidence that Eric's dying because of repeated attempts to recreate the symbiote. He got super evil bad guy cancer, and only Ella's power will save his life. He's desperate. That's where I feel the horror story might start. As I'm looking through the evidence, Dave the GM activates a cutscene. A glass containment shell slams around me and sends me shooting through the floor. And the next 15 minutes has me waiting with bated breath to speak to my evil brother. I am in character. I'm ready to try to change his mind before the inevitable fight. The other characters fight their way to the boss battle room, where I find out I'm already strapped into the Iron Maiden, stuck behind a glass shield. GM describes how I'm frightened and wide-eyed, but I am meant Ella as feral thrashing. She's spitting and snarling, but the glass blocks all noise. I can't hear them, and the rest of the party can't hear me. Alright, pause. We got a bit of a problem here going on immediately. Something I haven't talked about in RPG horror stories in a hot minute, but your GM is now responsible to describe how your character feels or what your character does. They are there to describe what the reaction of the world to your actions or what's going on to your character. Then I'm here to describe how your character feels, what your character says, or what your character does. I mean, they're only able to narrate what your character does as an action to give a little bit more flavor. Like, let's say, for example, player says, I grab the axe and hit the door, and they describe, you grab the axe, smash it with all fervor. Roll me athletics. 1. Oh, the axe bounces over the door and you fail. Whoopsie. But in this situation, your DM is literally dictating what your character is feeling. That is not up to DM to describe that. That is not the DM's job. It is your job to describe what your character is feeling in that moment and act it out. You in character, you're ready to go. DM is putting your character in some sort of a script. And in a sense, I kind of feel like your character is putting you in a bit like God, I forgot the terminology for it, but almost like a damsel in distress. I think, yeah, it's damsel in distress. Instead of being a player character, you are now just a damsel in distress, unable to do anything, just locked away as a prop for the rest of the players to rescue, which is really weird considering this is your player character arc and you're not able to participate in the slightest, locked inside of glass like tube that you can't hear anybody and nobody can hear you, and you're restrained, can't do anything at all. No, 100% your GM is a problem player in this situation. They are a problem here because they're dictating what your character does and how they feel, that letting you decide how your character acts and feels. My brother is wearing a Dr. Eggman suit fed by my siphon powers. He's not a horrible monster made of goo from failed experiments, but I'm intrigued by this subversion. Will my character be able to stop him? Appeal to his humanity he clearly still has? It's late at night, so I stay kinda quiet. Wonder if I get a moment with my brother. But combat starts. I roll a natural 1 for initiative. Classic. On my turn, I find out I can resist my powers getting drained, but I can't escape the cage. Okay, whatever. No, this is bullshit. This is absolute horseshit. So basically, all you can do, you start off the round with literally nothing to do. You can't even get out. You can't escape. The only thing you can do is try to fight the restraints or resist the power. That's your only actions. You know, this kind of sucks. For being your character arc, this really sucks. Next turn, I resist the draining again. On the third round, I try to overload his suit and turn off one of his powers. Eric low-key kicking my team's ass, but then making headway against him. Round 4, I turn off one of his powers again. Same thing for round 5. By this point, I'm kinda checked out. I'm watching my team fight my own supervillain and I can't even shout at them through soundproof glass. It's late, I have work tomorrow, and I'm a little disappointed, I can't lie. Finally, after 2 hours of combat, the team finally defeats Eric, but another cutscene activates and the power draining activates. And the other characters can't do anything as Ella's powers transfer to Eric. As her powers drain away, a screen displays cellular degeneration, 96%. Dave the GM describes the number going down and tells us we'll realize all of this was for Ella's god. What? Wait, hold on. First of all, the fact that nobody can act into anything and they have to watch as part of a cutscene. Having a cutscene in a TTRPG should only be used sparingly and like, I want to say ethically. I don't know. It shouldn't be used to disable the player movement. A cutscene should be able to describe what's going on in an epic way, epic crescendo, but still allow the players to engage in some way. If players are literally, players aren't just like locked like in T-pose and stuff off screen just to wait for the action to continue while the cutscene is playing and stuff. This isn't a video game. You shouldn't locking players directly in place out of actions just to have this cutscene play out. I get some cutscenes can be avoided. I use cutscenes as well, but I don't disable movement from our players on a cutscene. They could still move around and act and engage and stuff. I'm just describing something in flavor just to allow them to have a little bit extra flair, especially if they're doing something epic to them or unique to them. But locking players out of any action just to do some sort of a twist villain of like he was trying to do good for the first time all this time after painting this guy as a bad guy. What is going on here? I want to see how this ends, but I'm already pissed. Your GM is clearly 100% the problem in the situation. Her powers were killing her, and Eric transferred the deadly side effect into his already cancer-ridden body. Ella's powers cycle back, now clean. The surrounding restraints fall away. Dave describes Eric looking ill before collapsing, his breath ragged. "I'm sorry, Elle," he says as he coughs up blood. "I should have locked up the lab better. It was my fault, but now you can live." Both my character and I are stun locked. And then Eric dies. If Eric was gonna die in the first place, then why didn't Eric just explain to the rest of the party? "I found the cure for my sister's illness. I need to help my sister. Please come to my lab. Here's my research notes and stuff. I just want to help and stuff." Why didn't they just tell the party the whole time? What's up with this cringe ass twist villain saves the sister whole thing after clearly showing themselves as the villain? This goes against all the dynamic that the player discussed with the DM. DM basically said, screw what the player wants. It's what I, the GM, want. I'm gonna write something better, and everybody's gonna be wowed by my cutscenes and stuff. Man, your GM fucking sucks. I would hate to be with somebody like that. Not only are you not able to do anything at all during your big story climax and stuff, and just left to basically do absolutely fuck all for the rest of the party, but then you can't even have the satisfaction of having this one-on-one like finish off against the villain. Your villain turns out try to save your life without explaining that he's trying to save your life, and then just fucking dies. That is dumb as hell. Worst ending I've ever could experience anywhere in anything at all. Terrible. Absolutely god awful. There is such thing as subverting expectations, and then there's a taking a fucking nosedive down shitville. And this is that. I didn't know how to react, so I just kind of went, well, thanks for GMing. Good night. It's the next day and I typed this up, and I'm still pretty mystified. I played a lot of D&D, and I don't know if this is normal for mutants and masterminds. I like subvert expectations, but I'm slightly disappointed. I want Ella to experience some kind of catharsis for the misery she experienced, but now I feel like she can't double down on her rage. And I don't know where all that pain and agony can go, now that her brother has tried to redeem himself through his own death. It feels unsatisfying. He hurt so many people, but then gets to claim his own redemption with no other work. And Ella never got to say a word edgewise condemning him or asking why. She didn't even get to punch him. Not to mention, I'm not sure if Dave the GM had this plan all along. Notes and voice memos we found the other session confirmed Eric was doing this to take her power back. and sell it for his benefactors. I'm not sure if the GM did this to subvert the story at the last minute and redeem my supervillain, but it doesn't feel like it. It was the climax of Ella's story, but I don't know where to take her now. I bet you they wrote the character specifically to be some evil, bad villain and stuff, because none of it makes sense. I don't think your DM, your GM knows what the hell they're doing or why they're doing things in the first place. Because on one hand, they're writing to be some sort of psychopath that just wants to steal her powers to sell to the highest bidder. But suddenly out of nowhere, at the last minute, I was trying to save you, El. Goodbye. That's stupid. That's really, really dumb. If it was one thing, I would say, for example, if the notes are backed away that he was researching the sister in some capacity and was obsessive over his sister, sure. But if he's saying he's gonna benefit from selling this power and wants it for himself to become more powerful, to then going and curing her out of nowhere, listen, 2 + 2 is 4, but clearly this is like, you know what 2 + 2 is? No, it's a cheese sandwich. It's a cheese sandwich because none of it makes fucking sense. It just makes no sense. It's nonsensical. It's stupid. It's dumb. It makes no sense in the slightest. And I think your GM is literally phoning it in and just thinks this is so big brain and amazing or something. I don't know. Actually, I don't know what your GM is saying. I hope you question your GM about it, because you should be pissed. You should be miffed. You should be absolutely ostentatiously miffed, borrowing lingo from Mary. You should be so mad and pissed, demanding your GM to explain why they did what they did and why they decided this was such a good idea in the first place. I feel motivation railroaded because now I, as a player, have to ignore the realistic effects of Ella trying to carry on with the overarching story. I'm not trying to complain. I just care a lot about character motivations and their psyche, and I try to play her reacting to these events as they happen. I think my biggest problem is getting put into the cutscene and sidelined into being a damsel in distress as the other party members fought to save me, only for them to get the win in the video game, lose in a cutscene effect. It didn't matter if the other party members won the fight against Eric. GM had it scripted that the powers still transferred and Eric died. Is this a normal way to play a game? Am I crazy? I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I'm so confused. As a D&D DM, I would never sideline a player character in their own boss battle. But maybe it's a system difference? Maybe we had a difference in expectations. Though I did try to communicate my expectations, even texting GM and telling him I was excited to see if Ella would kill Eric or not. Please let me know if there's anything I could have done. But other than that, I would love to hear y'all thoughts on this whole situation, because I am flabbergasted. Whether you're playing D&D or Monsters of Mastermind, bad DMing is bad DMing. That's all there is to it. Your DM, your GM just sucks ass. They are terrible, awful, horrible writer. They don't care about what you want to do. If you would never do this as a DM in D&D, why would you expect anybody else to do this to you in the first place? It's not a system thing. You just DM kind of thing. That's all it is. Luckily though, we do have an edit for this one, and looks like there's been some updates ever since the posting of this story. Thank you all for the advice and for letting me know this isn't normal. Gave me the boost of confidence I need to let him know. Just got off the phone with Dave the GM, and I'm happy to say he was completely understanding and agreed with me that he messed up the fight. We're brainstorming will extend her story to a one-on-one with Eric. I'm just excited that Ella will get to punch her freaking weirdo brother in the face. I might even symbiote devour his irradiated corpse. Just a girly pop thing. OP, I wish you best of luck. I hope you get the satisfying conclusion as you need it, because oh my god, if the DM didn't see the other way and was like, no, my story is better, that would have been a disaster. I mean, you never know. You could come back and be like, hey, so my DM messed up my one-on-one with my brother and made something even worse out there. Oh no. You know what? I think that could mess it up further. Like suddenly your brother now, because you devoured your brother's psyche now lives inside of you, and you become the BBEG now. Oh, that could be actually really bad, honestly. That could be really bad. I don't know, man. Yeah, definitely be very careful with this GM. I would completely distrust them and everything, but if they made one mistake, they're more likely to make mistakes as well, and it's just something to look out for. And if you see some sort of behavior like that in the future where it makes a character feel sidelined in their own arc, definitely talk to them about it. Also, I'm curious, do they do the same thing for other players' arcs as well? Do they also sideline the player in their own arc and make everybody else in the party handle their business? I'm actually very curious about that. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.